Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here. We're diving into something absolutely crucial for any Business Central developer, especially if you're kind of new to the game and really looking to master the system's performance capabilities. Today, we're zeroing in on an incredibly useful AL method for handling those notoriously long-running processes, Business Central's Start Session. Look, if you've ever banged your head against the desk because of clunky, slow processes in your extensions, you are in the exact right place. Let's get into it. Here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the waiting screen problem, introduce the Start Session method, look at some real-world use cases, and check out the basic syntax. Then we'll actually walk through a step-by-step implementation together and wrap things up with automatic session management. All right, Section 1, the waiting screen problem.
So I want you to think about this for a second. Have you ever made a user wait on a screen? We've all literally been there, right? You write this genuinely brilliant piece of code to process a massive chunk of data, the user clicks a button, and suddenly, everything just freezes. The whole screen locks up. They're stuck staring at a loading indicator, completely unable to do anything else until your process finishes. In software development, forcing someone to wait while a heavy process just churns away in the foreground, yeah, that's a massive performance bottleneck. It's frustrating, it kills productivity, and honestly, it's just a bad user experience.
Which brings us to Section 2. Enter Start Session.
To really get how Start Session works, we have to talk about the word asynchronous. Now, in the context of Business Central, asynchronous basically just means running code in the background without making users wait on the screen. When we use the Session.StartSession method, Business Central fires up a brand new, totally separate session and runs a designated code unit asynchronously. It completely detaches all that heavy lifting from the user's immediate interface. And this perfectly captures why this is such a game changer. Imagine two simultaneous timelines. In one lane, because we triggered an asynchronous session, the current user can just keep working immediately. Their screen is totally free, the UI is snappy, and their productivity isn't interrupted at all. But in the other lane, that heavy process hasn't magically disappeared. It's just running quietly in the background. By splitting these paths, we get a significantly better performance experience for everyone involved.
Section 3, real-world use cases. So where do we actually use this? Well, these scenarios are super relatable. You'll definitely want to use Start Session for API calls, because an external API delay should literally never block a user's screen. It's also an absolute must for data synchronization and bulk record updates, when you're just churning through thousands of lines of data. And it's incredibly handy for things like sending out massive email patches or running background validations. In all these cases, the user really only needs to know the process has started. They definitely don't need to stare at a frozen screen while it finishes. Using Start Session here, total productivity booster. Moving on to Section 4, the basic syntax. Okay, the syntax for this is actually remarkably simple. It's literally just one line of code. You write Session.StartSession, open your parentheses, pass in a session ID variable, add a comma, and then call your specific code unit, like, say, codeunit : async sessions, and close the parentheses. That's the whole shebang. That fundamental AL syntax is exactly what triggers that code unit to run asynchronously in the background. It's clean, it's elegant, and man, is it powerful.
Section 5, step-by-step implementation.
For all the junior devs tuning in, we can actually break this methodology down into a super actionable two-part framework. Step 1 is creating the page action trigger, basically the button the user is going to click. And step 2 is creating the code unit for the long-running process itself. Think of that as the isolated container where your heavy lifting actually lives. Let's take a look at the code for both of these steps. Here's our first code snippet for step 1. Inside your page, you're going to define an action. Let's say we call it call async session. We'll set the application area to all, promote it, and maybe give it an image of start. Now, inside the trigger for this very action is where you drop in that basic syntax we just looked at, the Session.StartSession command. This page action sets up the interaction point. The user clicks it, and boom, the background process fires off, leaving them totally free to just keep navigating around the page. And here is step 2. You're going to create an entirely separate code unit. In this example, we've got code unit 51,000 named async sessions. Take a look at the on-run trigger. Right there where it says your long-running process here, that is exactly where you stash your heavy API calls, your bulk record updates, or all that complex data sync logic.
By boxing this code up into its own code unit, you're letting Business Central pick it up and run it entirely in the background, completely out of the user's way.
Section 6. Automatic Session Management. Now, I want to highlight a crucial note directly from our source material. It says, you do not need to manually close the session. Business Central automatically ends it after completion. I absolutely love this, because it takes away so much overhead for you as a developer. You don't have to write a bunch of complicated error handling just to make sure a session shuts down properly. Once your code unit is done doing its thing, Business Central handles the garbage collection and ends the background session totally on its own. You just start it, and Business Central handles the rest. Pretty sweet, right? So, to wrap up what we've unpacked today, if you're out there building integrations or heavy custom processes in Business Central, StartSession is an absolutely vital tool to have in your back pocket. By shifting heavy processing into the background, you're drastically improving system performance. By freeing up the UI, you're massively enhancing the user experience. And by managing those resources asynchronously, you're increasing the overall scalability of your entire solution. I want to leave you with this final thought. Take a good look at your current projects. Look at the code you're writing right now. How will you use StartSession to optimize your next heavy Business Central integration? Where can you give some precious time back to your users by pushing processes to the background? I highly encourage you to dive into your AL code, try out that simple one-line syntax, and see the performance benefits for yourself. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and hey, happy coding!